It looks like the Rugby World Cup 2021, which you may also know as the Women's Rugby World Cup, although it's not known as the Women's Rugby World Cup, it's just known as the Rugby World Cup 2021, is going to be postponed. It's still yet to be confirmed, but that's the recommendation that is being made to the World Rugby Executive Committee next week to postpone the tournament. The tournament was supposed to get underway here in New Zealand in the latter part of the year, but they've decided to postpone it. I mean, I was looking at job listings a while back, and they had all kinds of associated roles for the Rugby World Cup being listed. So it's definitely a big call to move this tournament, and 2021 is a year with a bunch of big events on in terms of the rugby calendar. But yeah, they've made the call. They will, like I said, take it to the World Rugby Executive Committee next week. But I would say it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that everyone's going to give this the big thumbs up. The preparation of the tournament, I don't even think they've sorted out all the teams to play yet. And the tournament is this year, was supposed to be, because they've not been able to finalise all the times to get the qualifying matches sorted. Just because of the pandemic, it's been pretty hard to organise rugby games. More so for the women's game than the men's game. Like, we've definitely seen in the men's game teams which aren't as financially big kind of draw cards. Haven't been getting any games. I can't remember the last time I saw Tonga or Samoa play. Japan hasn't played, even though there's not a financial thing with them. That was like a government decision or a JRFU decision. I think Georgia's got a game this weekend, but Belgium cancelled their games, so it's the same with the women's games. They've just been basically called off. I can't remember the last time the Black Ferns got a game over here in New Zealand. I mean, I don't follow women's rugby anywhere near the level I should, but all I know is it's been pretty few and far between. We had a domestic competition here in New Zealand, but that was about it because it's just too hard to organise the games, and I guess the financial incentive is not there. So we've still seen the Tri Nations go ahead. We've seen the Six Nations, Autumn Nations Cup and whatnot be organised, but women's rugby is definitely taking a back seat. The reasons they've cited, they've talked about the preparation time. The quote was, "It's not possible to deliver the environment for all teams to be the best they can be on sport's greatest stage," and it's basically highlighting the preparation time. These teams haven't had any test matches to build up on going straight into a Rugby World Cup. It'd be weird if the men's tournaments in 2023, if in 2022 nobody played any games. That would be weird. So that is a logical conclusion. And also the travel restrictions. And the travel restrictions links to the prep time. Remember, the competition's supposed to be held here. New Zealand is still currently requiring people returning from overseas to isolate in a managed hotel for 2 weeks before they can get out into the community and take COVID tests before they get out. So I know we have let in cricket teams. We've let in the West Indian team, the Pakistan team. Some of these guys tested positive on arrival. So it meant they were allowed to, some of them had to be isolated and some of them were allowed to train, and they're very strict on their movements and who they can train with. They're allowed to train in small groups. But honestly, it's a big old logistical nightmare to get these people to prep for a competitive tournament whilst going through a kind of managed isolation thing. I mean, rugby's even worse because you got to be, I would say, physically, maybe it's throwing a bit of shade cricket's way, but I would say you need to be in better physical shape to play rugby than you do cricket, especially with all the hits you take. Travel restrictions, prep time. I would say money has to be a big old factor. Like, if there was $1 to be made, a few dollars to be made by the end of it, I'm sure they would have found a way to get it sorted. But I would imagine the logistical increase in needs and then the possible return just doesn't make it a worthwhile situation for them. That's just me trying to read between the lines. Alan Gilpin, the CEO of World Rugby at the moment, I think he's temporary, he said they don't have the level of certainty they need, and there's too much unpredictability with the pandemic. Like, for example, we're in lockdown here at the moment. If New Zealand was maybe going through a golden period with no lockdowns, it would look like a more safe prospect to hold a big tournament here, but we're just not. We don't have that level of certainty. And yeah, that seems to be basically it. From all the talk we've heard about, like Super Rugby getting back underway and struggling to find broadcasters to broadcast these tournaments, apparently a big deal with that has been the unpredictability of the tournaments. If games get called off, that's not good for the broadcasters who signed up for the rights. So that's why people have not been wanting to buy these rights. At least it's a factor. So, yep, it's kind of not a surprise, but it's an unfortunate one. It's pretty disappointing that it's going to be pushed back 1 year. But I can see the reasoning behind it. Interestingly, I just mentioned to my wife, I said, she doesn't follow rugby at all. Not really. I said to her, the 2021 Rugby World Cup's been postponed. Like, no context, I just said to her, it's been postponed to 2022. And she said, oh, that's a shame. And then she said, what about the British and Irish Lions tour? Is there any news of that? Because I must have been talking about that quite a lot. And I said, no news on that. And then she kind of paused and said, wait a minute, Rugby World Cup? Isn't the Rugby World Cup not for a couple more years? So she's kind of a casual interactor with rugby, and the fact that the tournaments are just called by the years with no men's and women's classification did confuse her as a casual person. I'm definitely not educated in the matter as to the reasoning behind it, but it does seem unnecessarily confusing. I would have just said men's and women's World Cups is fine. But I don't know, like I said, I'm not really one to comment. I just threw that out there to see if she would get confused. And sure enough, it took her a moment to kind of... She worked it out though. She's like, oh, is it the Women's World Cup? So she worked it out. So maybe it's right. Maybe it is the right way to name them. It does raise into questions, I guess, the Olympics and the British and Irish Lions. But I feel like there's more money to be made in those tournaments. So those ones... more likely to go ahead, but we're still waiting for news on those as well. Anyway, sad news, but like I said, it kind of is what it is. At least it's only 1 year, and it's still going to be in New Zealand, so hopefully we can have a good tournament with less worries about COVID in more than 12 months' time, because it'll be September, October next year, so it's quite a long delay. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.